Good afternoon. Great to be here, to see all of you here. When Esther asked me to speak to a group of highly experienced and knowledgeable HR people, it was a bit intimidating because normally in the organizations, people stay a little wary of the HR folks. I'll start with something that I've gone through myself. I started my career in a large public sector organization. This was before the era of when we became deregulated, the Indian economy opened up. And the beauty was that when we joined that organization, we would actually sit and calculate that, okay, after so many years, we will be at this level. After so many more years, we'll be at the following level. This will be our salary at that time. By the time we retire, this will be our salary, and this will be our level. So a clear roadmap of where your career, salary, rewards, everything was. At this, after so many years, you would be eligible for a car loan, and therefore you will be able to buy a car. After so many more years, you'll be able to get a loan for buying a house, and life was sorted out. So that was the employee almost 30 years ago. But then I stopped and said, okay, what was the consumer like then? Okay, you could choose from 2 cars. You could choose from maybe 3 brands of refrigerators. You could eat out at 3 or 4 places. So just as the employee choices or employee compensation was in a very limited domain, so was the consumer choice. And then it struck me that I'm going to be talking to the HR guys and telling them about what rewards should be. And I mean, you guys do this for a living, day in and day out, so what can I add to it? So I thought, okay, let me then talk about what I do, which is essentially deal with consumers. And if we have to see the employee as a consumer, what changes? And the reality is nothing. We talk about employee value proposition. We talk about consumer value proposition. And what happens there? There is a basic transaction where goods are exchanged for a price. Here, a job is taken up for a salary, right? So that's the basic. But is it so simple now? Do people just work for a salary? Do you buy products just for the price? No. There is a whole, the whole game has changed. You have so many choices. The marketeer has to attract you with a lot more propositions than just his product. And if he has to do that, he has to go through many stages of finding who you are, what you want, how does he satisfy you, what will keep you loyal to him. And you as a consumer, just think of yourself as a consumer. Are you someone who's very loyal to brands? Are you not looking out for new products? Are you not differentiating between suppliers for the services that they offer to you? Exactly the same way we have to look at approaching our employees. Today, the employee is not about just a salary. There are the basic transactions, but then they have to be surrounded by a lot more activities that keep the employees engaged. And just to give an example, which probably all of you are aware of, so when you look at customer marketing, there are the basics of customer segmentation, right? So there is a need for employee segmentation. And a good example would be the airlines, right? So there are airlines which essentially sell you a cheap ticket. Some promise you on-time reaching to your destination and expect you to buy your own sandwich. That's a very simple transaction. There could be jobs like this where you're just, someone joins, knows what his salary is, comes to work, goes home, and that's fine. And the expectations are set. But at the same time, there are airlines which offer you meals and which offer you fancy seats and screening of the movies and all that. So people choose whether they want to go for this airline, which is low cost, but and goes on time, but no frills. Others may say, no, I want to go and travel more comfortably, be more entertained, arrive at a bigger airport, and all those considerations. And even there, the airlines have then gone into their customer segmentation to say, okay, these customers travel more, and these are occasional. So they have classified customers as platinum, gold, silver, and different level of services are offered to those employees. Those customers. See, it's so easy to change. It's the same with employees. I mean, an organization essentially looks at who are the critical employees, where are they, how do you differentiate them? And these things have to be very transparent. I think that's where the time of having these, camouflage salaries and benefits. No, I think the employee of today demands that transparency, just as the customer demands that transparency. So there is, I mean, as HR people, I mean, when I was trying to prepare for this conversation, I actually asked a few of my own HR guy, and of course, a few friends who work with the HR departments of various companies, and they all gave me various inputs, which were very useful and very educating, frankly speaking. And then I said that, and a lot of them were actually very common. But you know what I actually read to prepare for this? I actually read a marketing presentation. And how does an organization look towards its customers of tomorrow? And because the customers of tomorrow are going to also be the employees of tomorrow. And the expectations that they have in their daily life from products and services that they would be using are not going to be very different from the expectations that they're going to have from the employers that they're going to be working for. And as we know, our customers are changing. So are our employees. And when I look forward, what will be different? So when you look at customer, there are actually 6 segments of customers in play today. And I'm talking pure marketing. You have people who we call the sleeping set of customers. There are 6 generations. For people who are very old to the alpha people who were born as late as 2016. So that's the range of customers that a marketing or a consumer company is looking at. If I narrow it down by eliminating the 2 ends who will not be coming into the workforce in the near future, you essentially have 4 generations from baby boomers to Gen Z, which is coming in or is in the workforce today. Their needs are different, their drivers are different, their aspirations are different. And our rewards, our compensation models have to include all the requirements or essentially what these customers or what these employees are looking for as we design them. Exactly the same way as companies or consumer companies are designing their products, their services to cater to these needs. And then there are new models of sales coming in, right? You had the brick and mortar stores, then you had the large modern retail, and then you have the e-retail segments coming up. Similarly, you have new employees coming up in the workforce. You have 2 things which are going to be very different relative to what has happened in the past, is that you're going to have more women coming into the workforce. And women not just to be at the lower level of the organization to do the basic work, but here are women who are seeking careers. And therefore, the organizations will have to prepare themselves for an increased number of women coming into that workforce. And that will be a very different value proposition to offer. It's a number of organizations probably haven't yet got there. I mean, today, when you look at the organization, there are certain industries which have a larger share of women working for them, but more and more industries and more businesses and services will have women working for them, and that will require a very different employee value proposition than what has been on offer so far. The other is the millennials coming into workforce in a large number, and they're a very different group of people than what we have seen in the past. And therefore, the value proposition has to be very different for those people. And I'm not going to get into the details of what they can be. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that and are working towards that. But that is somewhere I think the focus of the organizations have to be, and they're working towards it. Another thing which I think, larger relationship. It is moving from transaction to trust, and that's where a lot of organizations are working towards and will need to manifest this in the reward schemes that they devise. So simply speaking, when all those of you who've kind of had an understanding of marketing, we typically talk about the 4 Ps of marketing, which is product, place, price, and promotion. It is really the same thing with, when you talk about employee compensations. You have compensation, benefits, work-life balance, you have performance recognition and career advancement. I mean, elements different, of course, but it's the basic, the core is the same. And it's not really about defining the core, it's about executing that core. And I think that's where the organization leadership comes in, to say that, okay, do I really live this? Do I execute this just as, you can tick the boxes by doing the basic things, but there's a lot more that you can do within each of these things. And I think that's where the organizations will be, organizations of the future or compensation plans of the future would be moving. That being said, I think there is also a challenge that today's generation or today's employees face, and that is really about what kind of organizations are there. Historically, and it's probably, I've quoted this earlier also, that historically organizations were built to last. Anyone who set up a business really thought about, okay, this is where I am today, this is where I will be going to. What has changed is that today organizations are being built to be sold. And the whole value proposition changes when the focus is on not building organizations forever, but it is about building organizations for a value to be encashed at some point of time. And the reward mechanism for these organizations will be different. We also have the paradox of rising unemployment, but at the same time having key talent missing. A lot of companies are struggling to find that key talent, which is exactly the same thing with customers. There may be mass customers, but most successful companies look for customers where they get maximum value and make the effort for those customers. So with that, I'll probably have more questions to answer, but my parting line to you would be that as you define, as you prepare your value proposition for your employees, read up some stuff on marketing, and you will get a good idea of what your customers of the future will be, and thus your employees will be. Thank you.